This device looks like an analog pocket, but it isn't. However, I can say that this is probably what a lot of people wanted the analog pocket to be in some aspects. I've been reviewing quite a few retro handhelds as of lately, and I think that this is one that is worth taking a look at, especially if you want to play much older games. So with that said, introducing the Powkiddy A20. Is this the modern Game Boy for your retro gaming? Let's dive right in. For more content, do make sure to subscribe to this channel because we upload fairly often and focus on all sorts of tech products. So do make sure to leave us a like and comment any of your thoughts down below while you're at it. It really helps us with the algorithm. And if you want to support us further, then we've actually got a Patreon open which offers early access to content and special insight to projects that I'm always working on in case that is something that interests you. So links to everything down below. So the exterior design consists of this soft touch material that does feel quite nice in hand. That's part of the reason why I find this device so comfortable to use, and I'm glad. This is modeled after a Game Boy after all, though it is much thinner. Has trigger buttons and much more. This device looks really nice in this color, and I really like what they did here. Sadly, there isn't really too much to examine regarding the overall design, so let's touch on the buttons and ports. This device features an analog stick that does not click down, 6 face buttons, which we will be talking about pretty soon, a D-pad, and navigation buttons below. We also got triggers around the back and are modeled to lay your fingers there pretty naturally. You also get volume controls on the left and a sleep-wake button. On the bottom, there's going to be an annoying rubber flap for the micro SD card slot and a USB-C port, as well as the speaker. On the back, you're going to find a micro HDMI port, a headphone jack, and a reset button. So this might be controversial to say, but I actually really like the buttons on this model. They don't click very far, but they are very clicky and satisfying to press. But many might say that they lack in travel, which is true. So I would say that this is a matter of preference. Especially that D-pad. It's one of the best, in my opinion, from the ones that I have tested. This device features a 3.5-inch 640 by 480 IPS display that does not look very good. This one stands on the cool side of things by default, and I'm just not really a fan of that. I always look for more saturated colors, a more vibrant gaming experience, so seeing this was disappointing to say the least. I, however, enjoy the screen size because it allows for the enjoyment of many types of games, which we will be exploring very, very soon. So when it comes to the single speaker setup, it's honestly fine. It's just one speaker that doesn't get very loud and certainly isn't very clear, but that's totally fine for a device like this, so have a listen. When it comes to specs, we are looking at I want to say something with different specs than the usual, but nothing particularly powerful. We're looking at an S905D3 CPU, 2 gigabytes of RAM, and a 3000 milliamp hour battery. I wanted to mention that this device also runs on Android 9, which is incredible on paper, but navigating past the initial screen is a total nightmare. Here's an example. This device runs on a Powkiddy box front end, which looks alright, just has the cyberpunk look to it, and things are organized into categories, but it's not the most intuitive system to navigate. But stick to this front end because Android looks terrible and is difficult to manage anything without a touchscreen or even apps to look at. There is no App Store either, so Android isn't usable in my opinion, so we are only going to speak on the gaming performance with Powkiddy box. Let's begin with performance and PSP. So performance is not that great. I tested out a simple game like Final Fantasy IV and experienced sufficient stutters, especially on the audio end. This is a lower end game too, since it's pixel based, so I was surprised to see it perform this way, to be honest. Also, the letters, when the speech bubbles would show up, look very cramped up and just super thin, just really difficult to see, so I already don't think that this is a good display for PSP, ignoring the aspect ratio. But I still wanted to see how it would would perform with a more demanding game. So I went with God of War Ghost of Sparta, and performance wasn't great here either, running at around 15 frames per second at best, but I still found it to be impressive considering that this is one of the most demanding games to emulate. There aren't any obvious ways of changing graphic settings or anything like that, so for this review, what we see is what we get. But no, I wouldn't buy this for PSP emulation at all. Now, N64 runs pretty well here. I didn't experience many issues playing Super Mario 64, if any at all. Honestly, it seems very smooth, and the buttons also help quite a bit here because I enjoy how the buttons feel, so I actually really like this layout for N64. However, be aware that this controller has 6 face buttons, and they are labeled in such a way that can be very confusing if you're playing a game that uses only 4 buttons. But Powkiddy did remap things to work fairly well. However, don't test any games that can use 6 buttons because I simply don't know of many games at all that can make use of these. I just wanted to shed light on that situation because the buttons do imply more usability, and I'm sure that it's there, but in none of the emulators and games that I tested. Only 4 buttons were necessary at most. But yeah, N64 runs great on the system, and that's probably because it's running on Android, which is usually better for emulation. So when it comes to PS1, the system runs it very well, and I think that this one was an obvious one as well as the following few that are going to be coming up. I tested out Street Fighter 2 and really had 0 issues at all. So far, I'm really enjoying this device for what it is and even what it can do, but I do wish that there was more freedom when it comes to customization or making adjustments to the settings. You would probably need to download a different OS or front end for it, since Android appears to be almost pointless since there isn't much that can be done there. It's somewhat wasteful too, because it's Android 9 after all. The RG552 from Anbernic runs on Android 7.1, which was released in December of 2021. The device itself, I mean. It also released for $227. This device has a more decent version of Android than that, which I can appreciate greatly. This device will be great for PS1, and I can strongly recommend it for just that. Game Boy Advance performs perfectly, so I mostly just wanted to focus on the fun aspect here. For one, the positioning of the A and B buttons are almost ideal for this system since those are going to be the only buttons that you use and they are right next to each other. So yeah, I think that for GBA and GB, this device is great. The aspect ratio is very nice and works nicely with this device, but it doesn't appear to be perfect, so I would not consider this the best GBA experience out there, but still a pretty damn good one. And the same pretty much goes for Game Boy and Game Boy Color. It's been a blast playing this system too, and there isn't really too much to say, but one thing that I have noticed is that the image looks pretty soft for every game that I tested on each emulator, which is not the most pleasant experience. Like, it's not that bad, but it is noticeable. Sadly, I wasn't able to find ways to customize these settings to improve the experience, so just like I said earlier, what you see is what you get. So this device has a micro HDMI port, so I wanted to test it out, just to see what it would be like to use it on your TV. So when you plug it into your monitor over HDMI, you will get a stretched 16:9 image, and it doesn't look too bad. So if you wanted to play on your TV, then it is totally feasible. However, while this device does have Bluetooth, I tried connecting a Bluetooth controller to it, but it simply would not let me click on the controller from the list, so I gave up on that. I wouldn't consider this to be doable, which is unfortunate, but you can at least use the A20 itself to play on your TV if you wanted to. So battery life is around 3 hours long with this device, depending on what games you're playing. For Game Boy and GBA, I would argue that you could probably squeeze a little bit more, but this is roughly what you should expect out of a device like this. In conclusion, this device is pretty cool. I know that this device isn't that popular, but I see a lot of cool things with it that make for a pretty good experience, as long as you set your expectations, that is. For example, enjoy your GBA and Game Boy games with this device. Other systems like N64 and PS1 and more will run quite nicely too, so this is a pretty nice system for playing retro games. It's also got a modern yet retro-esque design to it that should be appealing to many people. However, I have yet to review another product that could bring this one down from its pedestal, and that's the Anbernic RG280V, which is very similar in many ways, but different in the software that it runs, the buttons, and the screen. So there's plenty to talk about when that comes out. But for now, I will be focusing on the RG552, the Odin Pro, if that ever arrives or even ships, and other higher-end devices like it. But for about $109, it does seem a bit expensive considering that Retro Pocket 2 and the 2 Plus give you full access to Android and much more powerful hardware at around $100 or even less. But there is that form factor to consider too. So this is a tougher sell, but I still really enjoyed it and still recommend it at this price tag. So thank you so much for watching this video up until the very end. I do hope that it was helpful to you. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if there is any particular retro console that you would like me to review, I would love to give that a go as well. And also, I am going to be leaving affiliate links down to Amazon for this system, so do make sure to pick it up there if you are interested in getting it, because it does help out the channel quite a bit, so I would appreciate that quite a bit. And also, I would love to give a very special thank you to all of our patrons, beginning with the tier 3s, Aaliyah, Omar, Sada Wazal. Thank you so much for all of your support, because it really does go a very long way. The rest of the patrons should be showing up right around the screen right now. You guys also help out plenty, believe me. Thank you so much. And I wanted to say, please make sure to follow me on Twitch, where I do stream fairly often. And also do make sure to follow me on Instagram, where I post every now and then. But with that said, this has been Francisco from Tech Summit. Thank you for watching, and I will be seeing you all later. Enjoy.